Once you download Anaconda, this will be the interface. As you can see, there are so many packages in there. We have Dataspell, Jupyter Lab, Jupyter Notebook, and others. But we'll be focusing on Spider. Yes, Spider. So click the launch to start the application. We'll wait for some time for it to load. Still loading. Okay. So once it loads up, we can go to File now and create a new file. Okay. Right. So at this stage, we'll have to define the ratio of our Ly to Lx. Previously, we established three conditions. The first condition being the unequal panel, and we established that when our Ly was greater than Lx, and the ratio of Ly to Lx is less than 2, we'll have the trapezoidal distribution on the long span and the triangular distribution on the short span. Again, we established that if we have an equal panel, and we said the Ly and Lx are equal. In that case, the ratio of our Ly to Lx will be 1, and we'll have the triangular load distribution on all sides of the panel. Okay, and the last condition was when we have a one-way condition. In that case, the ratio of, in that case, these are Ly, these are Lx. In that case, the ratio of our Ly to Lx was greater than 2. We'll have the load distribution towards this longer span. Right, so let's try and implement these three conditions in Python now. So once we've created a new file, the first thing we are going to do is to establish the relationship between our Ly and our Lx. We need to allow Python do the calculation for us to return the value of our Ly over Lx. So we'll define a function to do that. So we would write our first line of code as define. So we are defining a function and we are going to name that function R. Okay, and would pass values Lx, Y. In other words, we are defining a function and then the function name will be R and the parameters within that function will be Lx or Y. Right. Now that we've defined the function, we need to perform a calculation to return the value of Ly over Lx. So we'll say return Ly over Lx. Okay. The next line of code, we need to allow the user enter some values. In the next lines of codes, we need to allow the user enter the value of lx and ly. So we are going to define our lx and ly. So let's write lx equals, now we are going to do a float. We can either do a float or an integer. Both ways will work, but we'll do a float for this. Into bracket. Now the user is going to enter values, so say input. We'll do another bracket. We need to allow the user know what he or she is entering, either lx or ly. So we would say that will be a string character, so we'll put that in inverted commas, and then we'll write enter lx space. Okay, right. Our next line of code, we can copy this, the definition of lx, and bring it down here and change the lx to ly and this to ly. Now at this point, let us run the code and see how far we've gotten to. So if you want to debug, you come to this green triangle here and click on it once. Okay, so enter the lx. You come to the bottom right corner, so enter lx. Let's use any arbitrary number, so say 4,500. Now ly, let's do 6,700. So this is where we've gotten to. So we've defined our lx and our ly. Now the next thing we are going to do is to establish the first condition as discussed earlier. So let me comment that out. So a hash, and then um, calculate ratio of ly over lx. So we are going to return the value of ly over lx. Okay. So to do that, we are going to use the print statement. So say print into bracket. We put a string character in there, so double inverted commas, right? And you say r equals to, then comma. We are now going to return the definition of our r, this r here. So say r, and we are going to return this function, the first function. Okay. So let's run the code again and see whether the calculation for r will be done. So we come here again, click on it. So let's use the previous values. 4,500, enter 1,700. Great. So the ratio of our ly to lx is 1.488. Okay. Now that we have the ratio, the next thing we are going to do is to implement the first condition when the ratio of our ly to lx is less than 2. So let's comment that out also, and we'll write check if ly over lx is less than 2. With this, we'll use an if statement to accomplish that.